Ladies and gentlemen, gather round, because today we're rolling back to the brass era, when motorcycles were essentially bicycles that had a midlife crisis and decided to swallow an engine. And the machine I bring you is not only rare, but also proof that Edwardian Britain had both engineering brilliance and a sense of humour. I'm talking about the 1911 Singer motorcycle. Yes, the same Singer name that made cars later on, but no, it never stitched a pair of trousers. So if your neighbour tells you Singer motorcycles were made by the sewing machine company, please hand them a history book and gently escort them away from the punch bowl. Now, before I crank the pedals and risk throwing a hip out, let me thank you kindly for supporting the Timmy Tiny Wheels channel. Right then, let's rewind the film reel to Coventry, England, 1911. The Singer Motorcycle Company, founded by George Singer back in 1875 as a top-end bicycle shop, had already dabbled in motorized contraptions. By 1901, they had a motor wheel, basically a bicycle with an engine hidden in the hub, perfect for when you wanted to scare both your legs and your neighbors at the same time. By 1904, they were making full motorcycles, and by 1911, Singer offered single-cylinder side-valve machines of 299 cubic centimeters and 535 cubic centimeters. These were aimed at sporting gentlemen of the Edwardian era, the kind who wore flat caps at a rakish angle and believed a brisk hill climb was a great way to spend a Saturday. And Singer had the racing credentials to back it up. They boasted wins at Coventry hill climbs, and one rider, G.E. Stanley, set a record at Brooklands in 1912, cracking 60 miles per hour on a 350 cubic centimeters Singer. That may sound quaint now, but back then it was practically supersonic and almost certainly caused more than one monocle to fly off in terror. The market was hungry for motorcycles that offered speed, reliability, and bragging rights down at the pub. Singer marketed theirs with ads screaming about racing glory. But when the First World War hit in 1914, Singer packed up the bike division and focused elsewhere, shutting down motorcycle production entirely by 1915. That means today, surviving Singers are about as common as a truthful used car salesman. Collectors drool over them, not just for the rarity, but because each one is a window into the birth of motorcycling. So, what did a 1911 Singer actually offer? Let's break it down, because this machine was an elegant blend of pedal-powered absurdity and cutting-edge engineering. The heart of it was a single-cylinder, four-stroke side-valve engine. Customers could pick between the 299 cubic centimeters model, rated at a mighty 2.5 horsepower, or the burlier 535 cubic centimeters engine with about 3.5 horsepower. Yes, horsepower you could count without running out of fingers, but let's remember, this was 1911. Most folks were still impressed by indoor plumbing. Ignition came courtesy of a Bosch magneto, while fuel was fed by a handlebar carburetor. Starting procedure was part circus act, part exercise program. You didn't kickstart it, oh no. You mounted it like a bicycle and pedaled, spinning up the flywheel until the engine caught. Only then did a leather belt engage, sending power to the rear wheel. It was an unusual system, and I think one guaranteed to make you either very fit or very frustrated. Transmission was a rudimentary belt-driven two-speed with a shift lever tucked beside the fuel tank. The frame was pure Edwardian bicycle DNA, tubular steel in a diamond pattern thickened to handle the weight of the engine slung below. Suspension was minimal, a leading link fork with coil and lever springs up front, while the rear was completely rigid. Your spine was saved only by the sprung Brooks leather saddle, which I liked the most because it tried in its humble way to cushion the ride. Braking was equally modest. A front rim brake activated by hand lever and a small rear drum handled by foot. By modern standards, that's about as reassuring as an umbrella in a hurricane. Wheels were steel-spoked, probably 26 to 28 inches in size, with a wheelbase of around 50 inches. Saddle height sat about 30 inches. Off the ground clearance a humble 4 inches. Weight came in somewhere around 80 to 100 kilograms, or about 175 to 220 pounds. Top speed, a breezy 30 to 35 miles per hour, just enough to terrify pedestrians, impress a few farmers, and give you the wind-blown look without a barber. Fuel economy was excellent, especially compared to modern gas guzzlers. You could sip petrol and still go the distance, which made the Singer a practical machine for early commuters. Add in the quirky fittings, a Lucas King's Own oil lamp on the handlebars, silver tank with green panels and nickel trim, and you had a motorcycle that was both elegant and eccentric. But perhaps the quirkiest note of all was its bicycle heritage. Those pedals weren't just for starting. They gave the whole bike a moped-like vibe decades before mopeds were officially a thing. The system was unique, frustrating to some, endearing to others, and absolutely unforgettable to anyone who tried to balance it on a wet cobblestone street while praying the magneto sparked. Now, friends, let's look at the design philosophy of this curious Edwardian machine. The frame was unmistakably derived from Singer's bicycle roots, but thickened and reinforced to cradle a combustion engine. It reflected an era where motorcycling was still defining itself, and I believe this hybrid identity gave the Singer its unique charm. Even the wicker sidecars, often fitted, gave it a homegrown yet stylish aesthetic, the sort of thing you'd expect to see parked outside an Edwardian tea shop while its owner straightened his tie. Philosophically, Singer pursued credibility through competition. They weren't making a machine only for commuting. They wanted to prove speed, stamina, and prestige. Entering hill climbs and Brooklands events wasn't just marketing, it was survival. Riders who bought these machines wanted reassurance that their money went to a firm with racing stripes, not just pipe dreams. In that sense, the design was a balancing act, part practical transport, part racing prototype for the everyday rider. Compared to its rivals, the Singer stood in interesting territory. Triumph and Douglas were producing machines with similar capacities, and Indian across the Atlantic was already perfecting more robust designs. Yet the Singer, with its pedal start and leather belt drive, retained a touch of eccentricity that set it apart. Some enthusiasts scoffed at the pedals, claiming they made the bike look like a toy, but others praised the system for being lightweight and elegantly simple. It may not have been as muscular as a Harley, but it had finesse. Singer's audience wasn't the daredevil outlaw, but the respectable middle-class gentleman who wanted to go fast, but not too fast, and certainly not arrive looking like he'd wrestled a bear. And of course, money talks. Back in 1911, a Singer motorcycle cost £33 and 15 shillings, 33 guineas. Today, that translates to about £5,100, or roughly $6,500, or €6,000 when adjusted for inflation. Not pocket change, but attainable for the ambitious rider of the time. Fast forward to now, and collectors pay dearly. At R.M. Sotheby's Hershey sale in 2024, one of these rare machines fetched $28,800. That is the highest recorded price, and average examples today are worth well into the five-figure range. Quite the leap for something that started life as a bicycle with a carburetor bolted on. So let's raise a toast to the 1911 Singer. Rare, eccentric, and dignified, it stands as a proud Edwardian relic. Its pedals may seem odd, its belt drive primitive, but its charm is undeniable. If you ever see one in person, admire it for what it is, proof that innovation often comes with a smile. And remember, folks, hit that subscribe button before you leave, because without you, I'll be left pedaling furiously on my own, and trust me, my neighbors don't need to see that again.